Welcome everyone, thank you for coming. We're going to focus today on Latin America. So first we're going to start by talking about Brazil. So I'll introduce Craig Hinson, who will tell you a bit about Brazil.
Hello everyone. So let's just briefly talk about Brazil in general right now. So if you've taken a class in international relations, political science potentially, you've heard the word BRICS thrown around and Brazil's growing economy and how it's really booming. And now things have started to slow down for Brazil economically. Politically, it's a very interesting place to be right now. You've just seen the impeachment of the former president there. Their economy has slowed down. They have this new conservative government that's made up of middle-aged or old white men, even though Brazil is racially diverse and they have a very large Afro-Brazilian population, as well as an equally large white population of Portuguese descent. Now with Brazil's social innovation and community development. So when it comes to things like social justice, things that you'll be looking at is why in a predominantly Afro-Brazilian city like Fortaleza is there such a high concentration of white Brazilians in things like universities, even though the dominant population is of Afro-Brazilian descent. You'll learn about things like that. You'll learn about things like affirmative action, which is quite important to Brazil because when you look at the Afro-Brazilian population, one thing that you'll learn about is that they're more of a marginalized community, oddly enough, even though they have a very big population within Brazil. And you'll look at everything in context to its history. You'll look at the role of slavery in marginalized communities in Brazil, the impact that had on Brazil as a whole, the slave trade, what are some of the things that these marginalized, oppressed, or poor communities are facing. So you will be challenged in new and dynamic ways to place yourself and your lived reality together with that of many Brazilian people, social movements, community-based projects, NGOs, and other grassroots organizations where you will engage in efforts to think collectively and discuss everyone's common future. Wrap up the semester, you'll be spending, instead of doing a traditional research project like a lot of our programs do, we have a community-based project, which is similar to kind of an internship. Students are selecting an organization and they're working on a project that relates to one of the themes of the program. So social justice is a big issue. One last point on this program, you'll be going throughout the semester to different organizations and you'll learn how they're dealing with marginalization, inequality, decolonization, and how they're working with Brazilians to alleviate some of these historical problems that Brazil has experienced. 3 weeks on excursion, so you go to Salvador, which is where the other program is. It goes to Manaus in the Amazon, and it also spends a week in Rio. The second one is Brazil Public Health, Race, and Human Rights, and this one is also quite interesting, and it also has a very large majority Afro-Brazilian based population there. Things that you would be looking at similarly would be the role that affirmative action policies have in trying to create more equality for all of Brazilians and in trying to even the playing field against those who come from a white background, because chances are if you're white, you're more likely to be middle class, but the same can't be said if you're of Afro-Brazilian descent. You'll be meeting with activists, academics. One of my favorites that I got to meet was a woman by the name of Dr. Raquel Souza, who is a Brazilian activist and academic, and she's very passionate, knowledgeable about what's happened in Brazil historically, and more importantly, what's happening in Brazil now, the introduction of neoliberal policies. You'd be learning about her lived experiences, what she's doing, what she's working on. On this program, you get to shadow an organization for a few days that focuses on one of the program's themes. And then you come back and discuss your experience as a group. One of the organizations that one of our students went to was a place that helps women that are pregnant have natural births, because is that they have a very a high percentage of women that are pregnant that have C-sections instead of natural births. They'll get to pick an organization to shadow, learn more about them. It could be in relations to what they're doing to address the issue of race, human rights, or public health. And that wraps up Brazil.
Thank you, Craig. I'll let you know that those programs are for Brazil, so you can speak English on those ones. But the Spanish-speaking programs we're going to talk about next. I wanted an alumni mentor, so go ahead and tell us about your experience, please.
Overall, it was fantastic. I have very particular interests, and this program just happened to align perfectly with all of those interests. We take classes, go on excursions. It sounds very similar to some of the Brazil programs. All of the excursions and all the classes are very hands-on. So I think for us especially, it was very personalized. The people who were in charge of running the program in Argentina, they were very nice and very flexible. They really made the experience very special for us. You get ready to learn a lot. There's a lot that sort of comes at you at once, but it's very interesting, very pertinent. And I think that drive and almost the way students are propelled to participate, it creates a space wherein everyone is engaged and active. And in the end, to look back on how, this personal engagement with other cultures and with academia, a different side of academia, it's really cool and interesting to see how that changes you and how that contributes to your own personal development.
Can you tell us a little bit about your research project that you did?
My topic was how migrants from the border countries of Argentina to the north was studying how they found work when they migrated to Buenos Aires. So Buenos Aires is a really large Bolivian and Paraguayan population. For my field research, I went to the outskirts of the city, the research institution through which the SIT students do their classes, and we went there and I interviewed some women who had moved from Bolivia and Paraguay, and I interviewed them about their experience moving and about their experience finding work in the city to test sort of my hypothesis, which was, does your nationality influence your ability to find work once you've migrated to Buenos Aires, regardless of what industry you go into? And I ultimately found that nationality matters little. The largest factor that determines whether or not these women find work is the health of the economy. And then this, of course, was written in an academic, sort of anthropological context. Very, very cool experience. Once again, continuing with the central theme of being very hands-on. I felt like I was in control of my project the whole time, yet my advisors were able to give me really valuable advice and guide me in the right direction to complete it.
Thank you so much, Dylan. The comparative education program in Chile, where you're going to look at 30 different schools and types of schools. So you'll be looking at all the different education systems in Chile, and you'll also compare it to Argentina. So you're going to go to Argentina and stay there for about 2 weeks in order to compare. So you get a really hands-on experience looking at Argentina as well as Chile. So it's a great comparative program. And you're learning a lot about indigenous students and the rights of people in Chile. And you're looking at bilingual education, you're looking at indigenous education, and how language is a big part of politics and about power. So that program also looks at the education system and how it was dismantled by the dictatorship. So it's really interesting to look at history and how it's come to present day, the education system. And you're also going to visit and live with the Mapuche family. So you get a really hands-on experience to see what the indigenous people have to face with human rights issues in present-day Chile. And there's also an option to do an internship. And we will jump to the public health program. So we have 2 health programs in Latin America, and Argentina is one of them. 3, Brazil as well. So this program takes place in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and it's a big city. It's a wonderful, beautiful city, a lot of murals, a lot of art, and you can see a flamenco performance here as well. This program focuses on health and public policy. The courses are epidemiology and social deterrence of health, and you look at how illness and well-being are shaped by social and cultural context in this urban environment. So it's very different than going to a small town when you're looking at this big city of Buenos Aires. You're going to learn about policy making and dealing with health in large cities. They cover addiction, eating disorders, and mental health as well. And the excursions will go to more remote areas, so you can learn about malnutrition in rural villages and learn from the doctors there as well. So that's a quick summary of the public health in Argentina, human rights, so it's social movements and human rights. Looking at the history of Argentina, the desaparecidos, so looking at the injustices that happened in Argentina during their difficult history as well. Public discourse to show that they are frustrated with the history and they want to have these museums that are showing all the history of the country and the politics that have impacted them. So there's a lot of activists in Buenos Aires and scholars that you'll learn from, and community muralists. And you'll also stay with a homestay in a Mapuche community and visit Patagonia. And this program also has an internship component. So next we're going to go to Bolivia and check in with our alumni mentor, Jacqueline, who went there.
So I did the Bolivia program last semester, and you're based in Cochabamba, which is one of the largest cities in Bolivia, not the largest. An amazing city. I love the program. The host family situation is amazing. You get really close to your host siblings, and you meet all of their friends, and it's just amazing. Something I really liked about the program is I felt like the excursions really fit into the curriculum well. Like, you understood why you were going places, and you had already read about them, so you were excited to go to them. The independent study project in Bolivia is unique because you have a little bit more flexibility on what kind of project you do. You can do a traditional one if you want, which is writing a paper, but you can also make a video documentary, and you can also do an alternative project. So I made a video documentary. Another girl in my program led workshops at a domestic violence shelter. Yeah, so I did Peru a year and a half ago, so that was the first time I had ever been abroad for an extended amount of time. So the Peru program is really awesome too. It's based in Cusco. You do a similar thing of 3 excursions, one to the rainforest, one to Lima, and one to Lake Titicaca. The Peru program had a similar theme to the Bolivia program. It was also like globalization. The one in Cusco was more focused on Incan history and contemporary Peruvian politics, but it had more of a colonial and Incan focus. You go to a lot more museums, that kind of focus. And I would say the Bolivia one is more politically focused. And they have a bunch of amazing contacts. Alex, who's the academic director, and Millie, who's like the co-director basically, are both Cuscanian and both have history of academia, so they have a lot of contacts that are specifically academics. Independent Study Advisor is a very famous Peruvian author who is amazing, and she has written recommendation letters for me afterwards, stuff like that. So there's a lot of really awesome contacts.
Great, thank you so much. Next, we're going to talk about the Chile Public Health Program. So the Chile Health is different than the Argentina Health Program. You're going to be in Arica, Chile, which is a smaller city. It's a tourist town on the beach, so a very different environment than the Buenos Aires program. And this one, you're going to look at indigenous people's health traditions. So as you can see in the images here, a little sense of what you'll be doing. And it's more focused on visiting medical staff and learning from activists about the policy and the political climate of health. Study the beliefs and health practices of indigenous Mapuche people. You'll visit the Chilean Ministry of Health in Santiago, and you have an option to do an internship here. Possible internships have been supporting HIV outpatient services and prevention advocacy. You'll provide education and rehabilitation for children with physical disabilities. So those are some options for the internships. So the next program we're going to talk about is the Chile Cultural Identity, Social Justice, and Community Development Program. This program, you're going to be in Valparaiso, Chile. It's an amazing city with lots of creative artists and activists. You'll be doing a weekly service project to help you immerse yourself in the community, which is really helpful for that immersion perspective that Jacqueline was talking about. So some programs, you get to be more immersive than others. So this program has a great project where you're going to be doing a service project to help you meet people in the community. And you'll learn from activists about grassroots political activities. You'll learn about social justice movements and human rights struggles and how the Chileans reconcile with the past to create an inclusive society. You're going to spend 10 days with indigenous Mapuche people examining developmental issues from their perspective. And you also have an option to do an internship in this program. So you can only do internships in Argentina or Chile as of right now. And all of the programs you can do a independent study project. The next program we'll talk about, the Ecuador Comparative Ecology and Conservation, takes place in Quito, Ecuador. It's a big city on top of a mountain, surrounded by mountains and a volcano. Ecuador is the most ecologically diverse country, and you'll spend a lot of time on excursions, going to the Amazon, cloud forest, and the Galapagos. It is a very hard science-focused program of biology and ecology, and this is not a program for political science or social justice of the environment students, just to let you know. The next program we'll talk about is Ecuador Development, Politics, and Languages. So this program also takes place in Quito, Ecuador. You'll look at language and how indigenous people who do not speak Spanish as their first language are disenfranchised, and their rights are constantly taken away or pushed to the limits. This program looks at political impact on the environment. You're going to meet with indigenous leaders, learn about their way of life, and how they're fighting to keep their life in modern Ecuador. In this program also, the director is really great at working with you on your own personal sense of identity, your questions of sense of self, and looking inward a lot of the time in addition to your academics. So it's a really interesting program. You'll also go to the Galapagos and the Amazonian rainforest as part of some of your excursions. Move on to Nicaragua. So this is an excellent program called Youth, Culture, Literacy, and Media. So here you get to experience students your age and experience how they're communicating through media, through literacy, poetry, and on the radio. So it's a really great program. Nicaragua is not as fancy as, say, Buenos Aires. It's one of those cities. It's a lot poorer, and you'll have the experience of electricity only certain times of the day and hot water certain times of the day. And you also go on an excursion to Cuba. Cuba is a great place to visit and experience firsthand. You also will see Afro-Cuban youth in Nicaragua, where they have a huge Afro population. And you'll be part of the politically charged discourse going on. There's also a poetry focus in Nicaragua. There's a huge poetry celebration. Past topics of research have included sexual literacy and education and transgender identities. The next program we will look at will be Panama. This is a science program, and this is the only program besides Brazil where you will have the classes in English. So all the other programs will be taught in Spanish. And as someone asked earlier, intermediate Spanish is fine, so you don't need to have advanced or native Spanish. We will work with your Spanish and teach you Spanish during the program. You're going to be doing field work in the marine coast ecosystems of Panama, one of the world's most biodiverse countries. You'll explore tropical rainforests, coral reefs, highland canopies, and coastal mangroves. And this program takes place in Panama City. You learn at the world-renowned Research Institute in Costa Rica's Earth University, and you'll be snorkeling to examine coral reef ecology and study cloud forest ecology while hiking in the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So it's a lot of travel in the Panama program and really interesting science, looking at farms and chocolate farms and meeting with scientists as well. Next is going to be summer programs. This program in Argentina is going to be June and July, and it's all in Spanish, so this is a Spanish-speaking program as well. You'll discover how artistic work has allowed people of multiple generations to work through Argentina's troubled past and advocate for social change. You'll explore Buenos Aires to examine the role of art in remembering, moving forward, and working towards social transformation. And you'll gain an awareness of the ways of art can offer diverse means of voicing discontent for social justice. And they'll look at the relationship between art and nonviolence and the use of art to express resilience and resistance. And you'll participate in art projects as well. So that's the Summer Argentina Art Program. And then lastly, we have a Panama Summer Program where you'll be looking at blue carbon conservation, which is really interesting cutting-edge research. So you'll do field work in marine and coastal ecosystems in Panama. You'll be looking at coral reefs, sea groves in 2 different oceans. And you'll study carbon sequestration in mangroves and wetlands, understand comparative ecologies in the Caribbean and Pacific, and you'll be working with scientists on that and spending most of the summer in the water. So that was a quick run through of all of the programs, and I just want to let you know that the application period right now is, if you're applying for fall, we're still applying until May 15th. If you're applying for summer, you have until April 1st. And if you're applying for spring, that will open up April 15th, so you can start applying then. Another tip, as Jacqueline said, speaking Spanish at all times will really help you develop your language and immerse yourself in the culture. And also embracing the boring moments of sitting home with the homestay family, just doing that little, not checking out by being on your phone and things like that, but really trying to immerse yourself in the homestay family, in the environment, in the culture will help you have a totally different experience. Programs are small, under 25 students is the limit. So I really appreciate the 2 alumni mentors we had, Dylan and Jacqueline, who came on. And if you have any questions, you can follow up with this email contact here. And thank you again so much for coming and spending a nice 45 minutes this afternoon with us. So take care, everyone. Thank you so much.